You probably saw this video circulating online. It shows a health worker who failed to push down the plunger when the syringe needle was injected into the recipient's arm.
The health department said the vaccination site was quick to rectify the mistake, making sure to properly inoculate the recipient. The DOH has vowed to improve its vaccination protocol following the incident. Good evening, I'm Gretchen Ho.
And I'm Robbie Alampay. You're watching The Big Story. A video of an odd vaccination session in Makati has now gone viral. Imagine getting infected without really getting the vaccine.
The Makati LGU admits the incident is a result of human error and has been addressed, but the DOH is looking to investigate if there are other unreported instances. Mobile journalist Jacob Lazaro gives us a front seat to the big story.
If there's anything worse than not getting vaccinated, it's thinking that you got the jab when you really did not. That's what happened in this video of a nurse jabbing a vaccine recipient with a needle but forgetting to press the plunger on the syringe.
Okay, tusok na ako. 1, 2, 3. Okay.
At first, officials dismissed the video and questioned authenticity.
Ang tagal na natin nagba-vaccinate, wala tayong instances na ganyan eh.
We will investigate and we will impose the necessary penalty right away.
But on Monday, Makati Mayor Abby Binay confirmed the video was taken in a Makati vaccination center on June 25, Friday last week. Binay said it was an honest mistake by a volunteer nurse and has since been corrected.
We acknowledge the video. It was human error on the part of the volunteer nurse. Volunteer po siya na nurse. That was immediately corrected. This happened June 25 and June 26, bumalik po siya sa aming tanggapan at pinakita po ang video at nakita naman po na hindi ho nga siya nabakunahan kung kaya't binigyan ho siya agad ng bakuna.
But the incident raises the question, how many times has this happened in the past? According to Dr. Isaac Maturgo of the Manila Health Department, this is how it is done.
We check the quality of the vial, check natin kung unopened, hindi pa talaga siya nabuksan. Then we also check the syringe. Baka mamaya po palyado kasi we aspirate the vaccine into the syringe. Dun sa required amount, dun sa desired amount. Usually after po ma-aspirate, nakita po namin walang air na present sa syringe and yung needle okay naman po siya. And syempre po, i-administer namin yung vaccine. Deep intramuscular.
Each used syringe must be disposed afterwards. One patient, one syringe. No exception. Dr. Maturga says no such incident have been reported in Manila. Curiously, no one seemed to have noticed that the syringe plunger was still fully extended when they disposed of the syringe. But Dr. Maturga says the nurse may already be exhausted from vaccinating people the whole day.
Usually po understaffed po tayo, wala na pong palitan, halos everyday na po kami nagwa-vaccinate, kaya po ganun na rin.
Still, if the vaccinators are already too tired, it then becomes a valid public health concern. An antibody test can confirm if a person has been vaccinated or not, but it can only be done 2 weeks after receiving the jab. The health department and Dr. Maturgo advised against it.
Pero hindi po practical yun. Dapat right there in there, dun sa site mismo.
To be sure that the vaccine was injected, Dr. Maturgo said a swelling sensation should be felt in the injected muscle. But the most practical advice is to check that your syringe is empty after the injection is done. I'm Jacob Lazaro and we are One News.
To shed more light on the matter, we have with us on the line Health Undersecretary and Spokesperson Maria Rosario Vergeire. Dr. Vergeire, welcome to the big story.
Yes, good evening, sir. Good evening sa inyo po.
Yusek, we are saying everybody's given the nurse the benefit of the doubt. This was probably due to fatigue, clearly an accident, not intended. DOH has said you are going to investigate if there might have been other incidences like this in the past. How will you do that? Is there a way for us to find out how isolated or not isolated this case has been?
Well, actually, sir, for now, we really believe that this is an isolated case. Our vaccinators had been trained. They had been doing this for decades already, not just for this immunization program for COVID-19, but as well as with the other vaccines that we have for the national immunization program. What happened was really a human error, maybe because of exhaustion, and we are not trying to justify, of course, and we will implement the necessary improvements like monitoring and advising all of our healthcare workers that they should always be cautious, they should be aware, they should always check. And also, we also advise our citizens, and we really thank that person who has submitted and shown the video to the local government so that we can immediately rectify this.
But how can people be sure? I mean, we know a lot of people took pictures of themselves. I also know a lot of people who don't want to look at the syringe, don't want to look at the process. Yung iba pumikit, yung iba looked away. Now they're paranoid. How can they find out? Or is that, would you have any other advice for anyone who's even entertaining this thought?
Well, I just want to guarantee our citizens that this is an isolated event. There would be no reason for whatever purpose there would be for government or for our vaccinators to withhold the giving of this vaccine, like failing to plunge the plunger or push the plunger and give the vaccine itself. This would be an isolated incident, and if ever there would be other circumstances such as that, we do monitoring of our waste disposal. We have this reverse logistics that we call, and this is a process whereby we do 1:1, where the vial and the person that has been given, we count it at the end of the day. So there would be no way that we will just miss all of these incidents if ever this has happened before regarding this kind of mistakes.
Okay. DOH Undersecretary Maria Rosario Vergeire, maraming salamat po. The country reached a milestone in its vaccination drive, breaching the 10 million mark in its total doses administered. Tonight's big number is 10,065,414. That's the official number of doses given as of June 27. With that figure, about 2.5 million Filipinos are now fully vaccinated against COVID. About 7.5 million have already received their first dose. Average daily doses administered in the last 7 days are at 236,000.
These are the other big stories tonight. Health authorities and experts stand by the efficacy of Sinovac vaccines after more than a dozen doctors fully vaccinated with the China-made jab died due to COVID-19. The president wants to arm civilians to the dismay of human rights groups and the vice president. But the palace clarifies this is not yet policy. And a boxing champion, Manny Pacquiao, hits back at Paradigm Sports. His camp is working on counter charges after the agency accused him of breaching their contract. These big stories after the break.
Good evening. You're still watching The Big Story. I'm Robbie Alampay. In Indonesia, healthcare workers fully vaccinated with Sinovac shots are still getting infected with COVID-19. At least a dozen doctors died of the infection. How will this impact the country's vaccine rollout, with the vast majority of our supplies coming from China's state farm? Cherry Salazar with this story.
On Monday morning, 1 million more Sinovac shots arrived in the country. The Philippines now has 12 million doses of the China-made jab, a lion's share of the country's total stockpile. The new supply will be turned over to other areas in the country, reporting a surge in new infections.
You have surge in Region 6, Region 8, and then of course you have Caraga, Region 10, parts of Region 11, Soxergen, okay, Region 9, Zamboanga Peninsula.
But the efficacy of Sinovac's vaccine CoronaVac is being put into question again. This as more than a dozen doctors in Indonesia, all fully vaccinated with CoronaVac, died of COVID-19. The archipelago is dealing with an outbreak of the Delta variant. Just last week, 350 physicians and healthcare workers also jabbed with CoronaVac still got infected. But Dr. Maria Consorcia Lim Quizon of the National Immunization Technical Advisory Group, or NITAG, said that manufacturers are still studying the efficacy of their vaccines against the new variants. But she vouched for the safety of all vaccine brands.
Habang lumalabas yan, doon pa lang pinag-aaralan eh. This is a race against time na magbakuna tayo at hindi mangibabaw na mas marami yung variants kesa doon sa COVID-19 na original.
The local FDA said Pfizer is 88% effective against the Delta variant, while AstraZeneca has a 60% efficacy against the variant first reported in India. Pending data on Sinovac's efficacy against the Delta variant, Duque says the government's position on the issue remains the same.
By and large, yung pa rin ang position nila, still efficacious or effective pa rin against hospitalization, preventing hospitalization and preventing deaths.
Malacanang is also confident that what's happening in Indonesia will not result in vaccine hesitancy in the Philippines. In a briefing, presidential spokesperson Harry Roque said Sinovac vaccines are not only approved by local regulators but also by the World Health Organization. The Octa Research Group, which recommends that GCQ be maintained in NCR+, said the country must stand on guard in anticipation of the Delta variant. Cherry Salazar, We Are One News.
Developments on the more transmissible Delta variant will be considered by government in coming up with new quarantine classifications for July. National Task Force spokesman retired General Restituto Padilla says the technical working group is already coming up with recommendations to be presented to President Duterte. The NTF says despite a downtrend in cases in some areas and rising vaccination capacity, caution is still warranted.
Sisimulan na usapin pero hindi pa po ito naisip sa final. Kung kinakailangan pa naman mag-tweet dahil sa mga makabagong variant na nakikita natin, maaari din po yun ang gawin natin pero without sacrificing yung economy.
Time for an express look at some of the day's big stories. The Justice Department says there's no proof that accused drug lord Peter Lim has left the country. Citing past immigration records, Justice Secretary Menardo Guevara said Lim's last foreign travel was back in 2017. But Guevara acknowledged that there are backdoors which the fugitive may have taken. The DOJ is now considering to request the help of Interpol to track Lim. The Presidential Electoral Tribunal orders Vice President Leni Robredo to answer former Senator Bongbong Marcos's appeal on the dismissal of his poll protests. Supreme Court spokesperson Brian Hosaka said Robredo is given 10 days upon receipt of the order to file a comment. Lawmakers deliberated on the measures seeking to provide media workers a prescribed minimum compensation, overtime pay, and night shift premiums. These are the Media Workers Welfare Act and the Eddie Garcia Act, which also pushes for safer workplaces. The PCOO said government media workers will not be protected by these proposed measures as they are governed by the civil service law and not the labor code. Filipino para Jin Elaine Ganapin has secured a slot at the 2020 Tokyo Paralympics as organizers accepted his bipartite application. How is he preparing for the quadrennial meet? Let's find out in my report. He might be under quarantine, but instead of resting in his hotel room, Pinoy para Jin Elaine Ganapin makes the most of his time by working out. He had just booked a ticket to the Tokyo 2020 Paralympics after the organizers approved of his bipartite application. The Bipartite Commission invites top athletes deemed deserving of a slot even if they didn't formally qualify. Elaine had failed to secure a Tokyo slot during the Asian Taekwondo Olympic qualifiers in Jordan after settling for bronze in the men's K44 minus 75 kilogram division.
Natutulog po ako tapos bigla pong tumawag si Sir Dindo na sinabi po niya yung good news, sunod-sunod yung blessings. Yung feeling na sobrang saya na di ko po talaga ma-explain yung feeling.
It will be Elaine's maiden appearance in the competition. He is the second Pinoy to become a Paralympian following swimmer Ernie Gawilan and the first Filipino para Taekwondo Jin at that. But the road to Tokyo wasn't smooth for Elaine. During the pandemic, he had no one to spar with. And he also had to lose 15 kilograms to enter the under 75 kilogram category.
Hindi kaya ng doble kahit talaga kailangan po triple. Yung sa ensayo. Takbo ka sa umaga, papawis ka sa pagtapos ng tanghali, ganun po. Tapos sa gabi po, online training.
Elaine is no stranger to discrimination, but Taekwondo allowed him to overcome his obstacles and become stronger. And now, with a physical education degree in tow, he wishes to mentor more people with disabilities to see a world of possibilities through sports.
Sa totoo lang po, gusto ko rin po na dumami po kami dito sa Pilipinas. Wala pong hadlang sa amin na kung kaya po nung mga normal na athletes.
Etong nangyari kay Elaine actually is a showcase for other para or amputees, no, na they have actually opportunities here.
After quarantine, Elaine will join Olympian and Taekwondo vet Kurt Barbosa in a bubble training in Laguna. The Tokyo 2020 Paralympic Games will be held from August 24 to September 5. Gretchen Ho, We Are One News. Time for another quick break. When we return. No, it's not yet policy. The palace clarifies the president's desire to arm civilians is just an idea. Boxing champion Manny Pacquiao shrugs off the breach of contract charges against him. The details after the break.
Good evening. You're still watching The Big Story. I'm Robbie Alampay. The Commission on Human Rights is criticizing President Duterte's idea to arm anti-crime civilian volunteers. President claims these civilian groups can help the police enforce the law. Pat Mangune with the story.
President Duterte is under fire for proposing to allow civilian volunteers to carry firearms. Vice President Leni Robredo fears that the move would result in an abuse of power.
Yung pag-aarmas, ang laking responsibility niyan. Ang laking responsibility, ang laking accountability, hindi yan basta-basta. Ang daming pang-aabuso.
The Commission on Human Rights, or CHR, warns that arming civilians without proper training may lead to even more human rights violations. On Friday, Duterte ordered the National Police to assist in arming civilian volunteers to fight crimes.
If you have this coalition, you have a list of people who are there and who can arm themselves. I will order the police. If you are qualified, get a gun and help us enforce the laws.
The palace has clarified that President Duterte is simply considering to provide firearms to civilian force multipliers.
Kapag ang mga volunteer groups ay merong banta sa buhay nila, meron din silang karapatan na depensahan ang kanilang mga buhay. It's an idea. As I said, it is not yet policy. I'm sure all these views will be taken into consideration.
For its part, the PNP has explained that they won't provide firearms as they are only tasked to regulate the use of them.
Wala kaming i-issue'ng baril. Kung sila ay gusto magkabaril at qualified sila, bibili sila ng baril nila. Wag po mangamba, even the CHR, wag po mangamba ang ating mga kababayan dahil itong gagawin na ito ay walang pinagkaiba sa karapatan ninyo na mga mababatas, mga karapatan ng ating mga members na media na kung gusto niyo magbaril at qualified kayo, makakuha kayo.
Former PNP chief and now Senator Panfilo Lacson is calling on the PNP to impose stricter procedures in applying for a gun permit.
Halos hihinto ko yung pag-issue ng permit to carry. Mag-undergo talaga ng gun safety seminar, tapos merong practical, neuropsychiatrist, talaga mahigpit. At hindi ka pwedeng yung by proxy o kaya non-appearance.
For News 5, Patricia Mangune. We are One News.
More Filipinos are paying their final respects to the late President Benigno Noynoy Aquino. 2 days since Aquino's ashes were interred at the Manila Memorial Park, the family mausoleum is now filled with yellow flowers and candles. The site was only open to the public by Saturday afternoon. Meanwhile, the public has called out President Duterte's non-appearance during his predecessor's funeral services and interment. Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque says Duterte wanted to visit Thursday evening, but the urn was moved to Aquino's private residence. Roque added that Duterte was only a no-show because he was concerned about the pandemic.
It could be because it's pandemic, no, and we're trying to limit the numbers, and of course the presence of the president would encourage crowds, no.
Let's take a look at the biggest stories on print and online. From the Philippine Star, the Philippine National Police is accounting all dismissed drug cases since the drug war began in 2016. PNP Chief General Guillermo Eleazar said information on these cases will help for better operations and accountability in the agency. Eleazar said the National Police aims to improve its conviction rate, particularly in drug-related cases. This from Business World. After failing to address deficiencies in countering money laundering, terrorist and proliferation financing, the Philippines has once again been included in the gray list of Global Dirty Money Watchdog Financial Action Task Force, or FATF. This puts the country under strict monitoring. Central Bank Governor Ben Jokno is hopeful that deficiencies may be addressed by 2023, as delisting may take 2 years. And this from News 5. The PNP is once again considering regular psychiatric tests for cops after 2 police officers were killed following a shooting rampage at the Manila Police District last Friday. Master Sergeant Reynante Di Pasupil was reportedly drunk when he barged into the police headquarters and fired indiscriminately. He was together with Master Sergeant Romeo Cantal. Staff Sergeant Reynaldo Cordova was injured but is reportedly out of danger.
And here are the other big stories from around the world. British Health Secretary Matt Hancock has resigned from his post after the married official was caught breaking COVID-19 rules by kissing and embracing an aide in his office. Pictures of the act were splashed on the front page of the Sun newspaper, which claims they were taken last month. Hancock's top aide, a taxpayer-funded role, was a friend the official hired last year. A roadside spectator holding a cardboard sign caused a massive pileup during the first stage of the Tour de France. On Saturday, German cyclist Tony Martin was sent tumbling when he rode straight into the cardboard sign being held out by a fan who was looking the other way at a television camera. This caused a domino effect. Many riders behind him hit the ground. Organizers are looking to sue the unidentified spectator, whom the French police are still tracking down.
Now for the big story in sports, boxing champion Manny Pacquiao shrugs off the lawsuit filed against him by Paradigm Sports. This comes after Pacquiao's decision to take on WBC IBF welterweight champion Errol Spence Jr. in August. Paradigm Sports called it a breach of contract, saying it had exclusive rights to negotiate Pacquiao's next 2 fights. The company said they were already working on a match with American boxer Mikey Garcia and had paid Pacquiao over $3 million for it. Pacquiao says the lawsuit has no merit and that they are planning to file counter charges against Paradigm. No gym, no problem for Gilas Pilipinas. The young Gilas squad is in Belgrade, Serbia for the FIBA Olympic qualifying tournament. With the limited time and space, the team made do with whatever items they could find inside the bubble for their workout. That includes lifting mineral water boxes and sprawling out in the dining area for floor exercises. The team will face world number 5 Serbia on Thursday. Catch it on One Sports.
A former staff of the late President Noynoy Aquino recalled his iconic AIDS bag. In a post, Cedric Forbes remembered Aquino's attention to detail. Forbes said his boss never went to meetings or events unprepared. Inside the AIDS bag, a copy of the Constitution, Philippine and world maps, even that of the West Philippine Sea, photos, graphs, charts, or articles, a calculator to compute what's left of the national budget, and for a sweet tooth like him, a pack of candies. Another ex-staff, Raf Ignacio, detailed the contents of his briefing kit, an executive briefer, the who, what, when, where of events, a well-prepared speech, talking points filled back with data, and a master document containing proof to back his statements. Now that's one bag raid we wouldn't mind seeing.
I've been reading accounts on Pinoy and his speechwriter's accounts, no? And he was a bit eccentric, ano? Apart from being a little bit of a nerd.
We spoke with Gian Lau last week dito sa the Chiefs. You know, all the things, the assessment, as they say, how history will judge him, all of that will come. But for now, what I really appreciate is these personal anecdotes, paano siya makisama sa mga kasambahay nila, yung driver niya na talagang napaka-close, napakaganda ng mga story na naglalabasan.
It's nice to see him
as a human.
As a human. We will be, for sure, be seeing more of those stories in the days to come. Well, that wraps up today's big story. Catch us again tomorrow at 8 p.m. on Signal Channels 8 and 250.
Please like our Facebook page, One News. For more in-depth analysis, visit our webpage, onenews.ph. Mask on.
Wash hands.
And stay safe, Philippines. Ako po si Robbie Alampay.
At ako naman si Gretchen Hall. We are One News. Have a good evening.